Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Ben Moskalensky Show. Sorry about that. That was my phone. Anyways, our first top. That makes me so mad. Anyways, sorry about that, everybody. Hello and welcome to the Ben Moskalensky Show. I'm not sure why my voice is so faded out there. I'm probably sleep deprived, even though I get 8 hours almost every night, with the exception of nights when we have hyenas and Seinfeld's on. But with the exception of those rare nights, I typically like to get 8 hours of sleep, even though I feel like I've gotten 3. You can tell by my loose vocabulary as well that it definitely doesn't sound like I've gotten as much sleep as I actually have. Anyways, our first topic for today is going to be books, more specifically my most recently published book, which came out the day before my sister's birthday, The Hero of the First Islands. But if anyone would like to talk about that, the number is 719-284-5873 with the pin 24777. Once again, the number is 719-284-5873 with the pin 24777. If anyone is currently unavailable as of yet, I saved my best topic for my last topic. So if you guys are thinking like, what would be a good time to call? Like, I don't want to call in too long, or I'm a shy person, or et cetera, et cetera. You want to like or you want to, I don't know, get in a highlight reel or something like that. If anyone ever compiles the best moments of the show, probably calling at the final 15 minutes of the show would be best. But the other segments of the show will be interesting as well. So if you'd like to call in during those, your call would be much appreciated. Now, without further ado, the current topic is Hero of the First Islands, which is my most recently published book, which you can go find on Amazon. Sorry about that. I need a little bit of water. And now I'm going to hop over to Amazon, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about my book. It actually did. I've had this book ready for a while, but I wanted to do like some editing. Actually, I did a lot of editing. And Amazon pointed out very few things. It's a pretty nicely sized book, and it's much more of a kid's book compared to Journal of the Survivor and Hawker's Memoirs. And I've actually recently come out with the poll for my book 9. So if anyone would like to go check that out, make sure to go do that. It's on Google Plus. I've plastered it everywhere. But yeah, this book is probably recommended ages 6 to 10, I'd say, grade levels K through 4. Finally, there's a page count. We got 193 pages on this book, so it's not quite as long as my past books, such as Hawker's Memoirs or Journal of the Survivor 2, which I can almost guarantee is going to be longer, considering we're not even a full 25 entries out of almost 80 through yet, and we were already at 100. We're like 2 pages below 100, so I'm sure it's going to be longer than Hero of the First Islands. But if you are the kind of person, my guess is most people read at the rate I probably write. So if you're looking for a nice read, which will take you, I don't know, a third of a year or something, like a 200-pager, once again, Hero of the First Islands, The Fate of Dawn on Amazon. So now I'm just going to read off the description. There's going to be a lot of reading today, actually, not only in this section, but in the next sections as well. But I'm not going to be doing like only reading like the last segment of the last show. I'm going to be adding my own commentaries and adding my own points as well. But now I just want to read the description of Hero of the First Islands, and I'm going to run through some things that people pointed out in the first draft version. We do not have any reviews as of yet on the book, but hopefully that will change as time passes. The book has just come out. As said, it came out August 30th of this year, so it's an extremely recent book, and as of filming this episode, it is September 2nd, 2017. My sister's birthday is actually recently passed, so make sure you go give some love to her in the comments. We're actually going to have some friends over for a friend party, or at least some of her friends. But right now, this is my main priority. So without further ado, I just wanted to bring that up since it was her birthday. Without further ado, The Hero of the First Islands, The Fate of Dawn, which is the first book in the trilogy. Yes, it's going to be a trilogy. Here's the description. The Hero of the First Islands takes place in the year 1930 on a series of islands that nobody knows of. They were created by very powerful wizards thousands of years ago to soar 5 swords. The Hated Swords, which is an acronym, HATED. The Honor Sword, the Anger Sword, the Totalitarian Sword, the Energy Sword, and the Determination Sword. These swords are not only weapons, but they are keys. On the 21st of October, if all 5 of the swords are dropped in the ocean, then an ancient beast, the Nacrid, shall awaken and try to rule the world again. The prophecy, written by the same wizards, talks of three people. The first of which is trying to release the Nacron and work with the Nacron to rule the world. The second of which is trying to stop the first from accomplishing their task. The third of which is a guide for the second. It is a race, and everybody hopes that the first person of the prophecy does not win it. And that's pretty much that's a majority of the book. It basically talks about the two protagonists and the antagonist, and I didn't want to go. One of the things in my view that made that's kind of interesting about my books is I am not funny enough, I am not the most creative person, but I'm good at spinning things, and I really utilize that. Because I mean, the concepts for all of my three main book series, being Journal of the Survivor, The Hawker's Memoirs, and now The Hero of the First Islands, none of them are very creative. I mean, the Journal of the Survivor takes place after a post-apocalyptic, it's an apocalyptic world, post World War III with all the nukes and everything. It's many years later, and the protagonist, very good person in a very bad world, trying to find her father, and it goes from there. Stereotypical plot. And you look at Hawker's Memoirs. It's a recounting about late 17th century Europe. That's not some unique time. Many people write about late 17th century Europe. It's not quite as popular as, like, say, 18th century or mid 15th or anything like that. I'm not that boring, but still, late 17th is not exactly not one of the most original ideas of them all. And I utilize a lot of real historical elements instead of coming up with my own stuff. Even though I do come up with a lot of my own stuff as well. And Hero of the First Islands, you just heard the description of Hero of the First Islands. And if anybody missed it, or if anybody would like to talk about and ask any questions about the book, the number is 719-284-5873 with the pin 24777. Once again, the number is 719-284-5873 with the pin 24777. I've never really been good at coming up with an original plot idea. I mean, I think my most original plot idea would be one of the plots in the book 9 poll, which I posted on Google Plus, and don't want to go into too many details on that. I would rather people actually go check it out, read it for themselves, and vote on what they would prefer. But sorry about that, I kind of phased out. But my point is, I've never been good with creating ideas. And this is not just something I'm saying or anything. Like, pretty much everybody I've talked to who has ever read any of my books for more than like 2 pages at a time has said that a lot of spins I take on my books are very creative. Both biased and unbiased people say this. And it applies to Hero of the First Islands as well, I'd say. Like, I do some very interesting things with some very normal, stale ideas. Not to float my own boat or anything, but yes, I'd say that would be it. You can go, once again, you can go find Hero of the First Islands on Amazon. This is the first book in the series. I'm not sure when the second one will be coming out. And the same applies to Hawker's Memoirs. It's going to be a while, but right now I'm on my Journal of the Survivor run. Most likely, by the time I finish Journal of the Survivor 3, I'm going to be violently sick of it. Because right now, I'm in love with this thing. I mean, I mean, especially one of my newest entries, entry 142, which is in my Journal of the Survivor 2 collection on Google+. I'd have to say, the first exceptional entry of the series. And I mean, I just love the thing. That was a great one. And it was such a different kind of action compared to a lot of the other stuff in the book. And like all Journal of the Survivors, it has, or I guess all other Journal of Survivors, it has a slow start. Hawker's Memoirs and Hero of the First Islands, they are more fast-paced books. They get kicking right away. Journal of the Survivor is a much more satisfying book, if you will. It takes its time with its characters and its progression. It's not boring. There are many exciting parts in between. But all the main, like, heart-racing, just completely thrilling action, it never happens in the beginning. I like to take my time with this series. And people, they really miss Journal of the Survivor because people like the fact that I was coming up with new series, but they thought that it was just getting a bit too much. And after Hero of the First Islands, which is an extremely different demographic from the rest, which people thought, and And it was surprising because a lot of people who wanted Hero of the First Islands didn't actually turn out to read it, whereas Hawker's Memoirs they did, because I'd say Journal of the Survivor is more similar to Hawker's Memoirs than it is to Hero of the First Islands. And you must remember, the only reason I have even a little bit of fame is because of Journal of the Survivor. So people decided they wanted to see something new, something more than just Journal of the Survivor, especially since my creative waters were kind of tapped out for that series after doing 6 months nonstop of writing about Journal of the Survivor, especially with my much more limited English mastery at the time. So they wanted Hawker's Memoirs, and a ton of people liked Hawker's Memoirs a lot. People still say Jots is my best series, and I'd be inclined to agree. But people say from an English standpoint that Hawker's Memoirs takes it all the way, and I mean that's a no-brainer. Like if you read, if anybody here has been not even a diehard fan, but if you've just checked out my 3 series, you can see that the level of English I use in Hawker's Memoirs. It took me way longer to make that book because I put way more effort into that book than I did with pretty much any of my other books. So actually, maybe I put more into Hero of the First Islands. I'll have to think about that one. But still, Hawker's Memoirs was an extreme challenge for me, and I think it really pays off despite the spam review, which I am still asking Amazon to get off. Luckily, we have nothing of the sort on Hero of the First Islands. If anyone would like to call in and talk about my books, the number is 719-284-5873 with the PIN 24777. Once again, the number is 719-284-5873 with the PIN 24777. We are in the final 3 minutes of our first segment, which is once again books, more specifically my books, but you can tie it into other books if you'd like to. And the reason I bring this up now is because of the fact that I came out with the book 9 poll, and it's a big thing when I come out with those polls because I typically like to plan a lot for the future. So that's kind of it for Hero of the First Islands, I'd have to say, at least in that deal that I was talking about. But one thing that I really did like was we actually got some people who read Hero of the First Islands. I kind of did this as a desperate exploit, but some people who went to go to, I can't English today. Some people who went and read Hero of the First Islands, I noticed it took off a lot more because I had like literally zero people reading at the beginning, and I noticed like I have to do something, and I did some promotion and everything, and it still wasn't taking off. I had like the occasional person, but no fans. Then I put some Jots characters in it, did some time travel, which will, yes, I kid you not, be explained until Journal of the Survivor 5. If I live to Journal of the Survivor 5, that is where everything will be explained. And no, it will not be explained here at the First Islands. And after that, we actually got some fans, but I still kind of felt bad about it because I kind of baited people into reading it. Because if I put the names Hannah Holloway, actually even Hannah Holloway, like, for some reason, people are most drawn to that name. That's what gets the Google searches or something like that. Not Oliver Crome, or Sawyer Houston, but Hannah Holloway. Put that in. I got some fans. Not many, but a couple. And I noticed that once those few people, but still, those people started pushing the book and like started resharing and stuff, I noticed that I actually got some real fans, like some people of the correct age demographic, or some parents who were saying stuff like, "This looks really cool. Let me know when it comes out," or like, "I'll be following this. Sounds interesting," etc., etc. And that's really the point of these books. And that's one of the reasons, honestly, I make it, because even though, yes, I do this primarily for myself. I'm not going to pretend to be some self-righteous whatever like Markiplier, but he's a separate video. And if you guys would like to see a segment on Markiplier and my personal opinions on him as to why I like and dislike him, make sure you let me know. With me just saying that, I'm either going to get flamed or adored, probably flamed. But we're going to see about this, because the only person I'd say on YouTube more controversial than Keemstar is Markiplier. And I know that's a weird one, especially with all the stuff going on with MatPat right now, with all the things that have been going on with FouseyTube. And yes, at one point after I've done all my research, I'm going to be doing another one on FouseyTube. The Freakonicion, which I talked about in my last show. But make sure you go check that out. That guy was yuck. That was creepy. And and all these different things. But should I tackle Markiplier? And I will probably be talking about books again soon, since I'll be going to my charity event. So, but that'll be wrapping up this segment. If anyone would like to call in, talk about our next segment, which is going to be video games, the number is 719-284-5873 with the pin 24777. Once again, the number is 719-284-5873 with the pin 24777. My guess is we will not have time to go over the entire list. I'll be explaining this list in a second here to those of you who haven't been diehard fans of the show and don't know of it. But one kind of funny thing I'd like to point out is, thanks to my mom and my dad, I got a phone recently. I kind of discovered the gift before, because my birthday and my sister's birthday is a week away. My sister's birthday was on the 31st of August, and mine's coming up on the 8th. They were supposed to give it to me on the 8th, but I accidentally stumbled across it, and they just couldn't keep the secret once I had already seen the phone. Even though I completely glossed over it, and I would not have noticed it if my dad didn't bring it up. The thing is about I'm like terrified that I'm accidentally gonna be like, and the number is 4. You know, like start giving out my actual phone number. Yeah, that would be a bad one. And please do not feel afraid to give out the number for this show if you know anyone who'd like to call in. Because the more callers, the better. I mean, I always love it when people call in, except if they're, you know, this is Teddy Roosevelt with the FBI. I'm accusing you of 9/11. With the exception of those idiots, I do really enjoy when you guys call in. So if anybody would like to call in, feel free to. Now, a couple shows ago, I was reading off my top 10 best and worst video games of 2016 list, which I post every month. So I was doing my best of 2016 at the end of July, and on my sister's birthday, yes, I had to wake up at 6 a.m. to do this. I came out with my top 10 worst video games and movies of 2016, and I kind of want to read them off and give my own commentary as I go along with it. That might not make a lot of sense, but trust me, it'll make sense as we go along. But before I begin, once again, the number is 719-284-5873 with the pin 24777. Once again, the number is 719-284-5873 with the pin 24777. Sorry, I am not buying for time. I just like to do that sometimes. Number 10, kickoff. And by the way, if you want to read this list for yourself in case I don't have time to finish it, it's on Google+. Both of these lists, I'm going to be going over the next list, which I think is even more interesting than this one. I'm going to be going over the next list in the final segment, and the free-for-all, we'll do some cool stuff for the free-for-all, with callers in and myself. But anyways, number 10, Kickoff Revival. And it'll probably be pretty clear when I'm doing commentary and when I'm just reading off the list, and if it's not, it doesn't really matter too much, because it's not like I'm a robot reading off, switching between, because you guys can call it. Before 1993, which is the release date of the first FIFA, there were really no major soccer-related video games. That was until 1989's Kickoff came out. It was a pretty big hit, and last year they remade the game, with the only major difference being graphics. Yep, that's it. So there are several things wrong with this. Firstly, why now? The FIFA games are almost monopolizing the soccer gaming industry. The only thing keeping them away from a lawsuit for monopolizing are some fairly popular indie games. I might have overstepped my bounds here. I'm not sure what they mean by, I'm not sure if you're allowed to sue for a specific type of gaming, but if so, this statement applies. If not, it doesn't. But I think the message went across, because exaggeration isn't bad typically. And this is definitely not a case of bad exaggeration. It will not hurt anyone, that's for sure. Secondly, this is a desperate attempt to get money and exploit nostalgia. The term the Crones typically use is a rush job. I put that in as a little reference because for some reason I literally get hundreds of views on these things. Even on the first one that I did in the beginning of July, I got over I think I got over 1,000 views on the video games one. It's insane. And what am I sitting at right now? I'm gonna see if I can find it. I know I can look up analytics. Shoot, I can't do it on the computer, but I'll look it up and I'll let you guys know during the free-for-all. Assuming I'm not super busy. Third, they pretty much copied and pasted the original. And this is true, by the way. It's a very similar game besides graphics, which I brought up in the beginning. Fourth, the controls are weird and hard to use. since a game like this was meant for an older style of controller, it's like playing Asteroids or Space Invaders on a PS4. It would just be weird. This is one point I actually want to expand on a bit. No, not like a Dong or a Donkey Kong, as the layman would call it. It's the fact that, like, I know this might not make a lot of sense to a lot of people because there are tons of games that work fine on different consoles. But my point in this is older style games had a much more rigid kind of controlling. Take for instance 1987's Punch-Out compared to 2016's Bloodborne, both of which are masterpieces of gaming, by the way. If you guys are looking for oldies and newies, 2015's Bloodborne and 1987 Mike Tyson's Punch-Out. Sorry, I have to get that correct because it'll make a lot of people mad if I don't. The reason I'd say Mike Tyson's Punch-Out is harder, at least from what I've seen, I personally have never played it myself, unlike Bloodborne, which I loved. But my point is, like, it has a very rigid control style, whereas Bloodborne, even though in pure gameplay I'd say Bloodborne is actually harder, it has much more fluid and smooth controls with the PS4. Which is why I'd say Mike Tyson's Punch-Out actually winds up being harder. And this is the thing, Punch-Out. Kickoff was meant to be a very rigid kind of styling of gaming, very precise and rigid, not more open and smooth and fluid, which is why Kickoff Revival just doesn't work. Number 9, Ace Banana. Now, many people will think that this game is on the list purely due to its stupid concept. This is not true. I mean, Superhot's story was dumb, and I'm not even sure Doom had one. Absolutely. Wait, sorry. Do I think the premise of this game is stupid? Absolutely. And you should too. This is a common theme throughout this post. And in case I don't have time to get to all of it, absolutely and you should too is a very common thing throughout this one and my movies one. I don't know why. It's a banana who wants to protect other bananas from monkeys. But the thing that ruins it is the gameplay. And that, by the way, that story is pretty much the summary of all you need to know about this game's story. It's inept, beyond inept. Might as well just not have one. Just stick to goofy graphics. Remember way back on to my first list, my number 3 choice for best game of the year? To those of you who don't remember that, make sure you go check it out. But anyways, the answer is Final Fantasy 15. One of the reasons I really liked that game was because of the fact that it felt like a next-gen experience, like Metal Gear Solid 5. This game, I said the game, I meant this game felt hollow. It was fairly story-based, but you don't form any attachments by the end of the game. The controls are just the finisher for me. Just awful controls in pretty much every respect. Remember how I talked about how it's more fluid nowadays, how the controls are more fluid and everything? This game takes it way too far. Bloodborne got it down perfectly, and that whole company, like, I mean, they make great games. Remember Dark Souls 3? Yeah, that made it onto my top 10, almost top 5 best games of 2016, because freaking Bloodborne was amazing. Or keep with the Bloodborne. Dark Souls 3 was just amazing. I mean, props to those guys, and I can't wait to see what they come out with. I can't English. I can't wait to see what they come out with. Are you kidding me? I can't wait to see what they come out with. In 2017 or 2018. Like, personally, I'm hoping for another Bloodborne. I mean, Bloodborne 2. Like, I'm ready. I am ready for Bloodborne 2. Anyways, number 8, Coffin Dodgers. And not coffee. For some reason, when I read this list to my mom yesterday, I kept saying Coffee Dodgers. It's Coffin Dodgers. The reason I disliked Kickoff Revival and the reason I didn't like Ace Banana are very different, right? Well, the reason this game is worse than both of those other games is because I dislike games. I dislike this game. For some reason, I got a couple typos. I dislike this game for both of the reasons previously mentioned. We had some great indie games this year. Coffin Dodgers is not one of them. It's a shoddy, depressing, cheaply animated, and not fun to play poor imitation of Mario Kart. Except none of the characters are iconic, and nothing in the game is interesting. The items are all either OP or useless, and it's not smooth or fluid in the slightest. I mean, I've never been a fan of the Just Dance series, but with a couple of pals, at least you can have a good time with that game. So far, I can't say the same about any of these other games. Number 7, Model Racer 4. This stupid game. The Model Racer games were pretty good, the first 3 at least. That was until they screwed it up with Game 4. They could have let it die as a trilogy, and nobody would have had a problem with it. A I don't know why I always misspell star as start. Everyone does that. I don't know why. A 4-star trilogy, at least. But after this game, the series becomes 3.5 at the absolute best. And even that's way too high. This game ripped off a lot of its features from the past games, but unlike Kickoff Revival and Coffin Dodgers, at least this wasn't highway robbery. The menus are super long and contrived, not to mention it feels limited compared to some other driving games like Forza. But the finishing touch, which makes this game as bad as it is, are the glitches. Every 2 seconds something goes wrong. I mean, the game's almost unplayable. These people had 15 years. What were they doing for 15 years and think, yeah, a game that glitches and breaks every other minute is ready to go. Even my neighbor's dog is getting triggered talking about this game. And believe it or not, this is only number 7. I would actually like to bring this up real quick. Yes, this is completely true. Model Racer 4 came out in 2016. And you can go fact check this. I'm looking this up right now. I don't know why I looked up Model Racer. It's Model Racer 4. Boom. Model Racer 4, video game. Initial release date, October 13th, 2016. Now you look up Model Racer 3, a good game. I know it's kind of hard to comprehend, but a good game. December 6th, 2001 was the initial release date. These guys had 15 years to make a good sequel. Insane, insane. I mean, just insanity, just complete insanity. Anyways, we will now be moving on to our number 6 choice, which was personally my least favorite to talk about, and you're about to see why. Number 6, Fate Extella, the Umbral Star. Now, this game is actually not too bad in most respects. The characters are pretty good, considering it's an anime game. The voice acting isn't bad. It is definitely the most original game on this list. Not just so far, but there are 3 massive things about this game that make this game as bad as it is. First of all, the market. This is edgy. Fire Emblem, Final Fantasy, and Kingdom of Hearts. The 3 main players in the anime gaming business like to keep themselves pretty clean in terms of imagery. I'm not going to go into more specifics on what I mean by imagery. Whereas nearly 100% of anime fans and anime creators strive for the exact opposite. That's one of the main complaints about Fire Emblem, actually. I know, right? People are shallow. And yeah, I put that in because it's true. If your main complaint about Fire Emblem is that there's not enough imagery of sorts, you are a shallow person. Because Fire Emblem games are pretty much great. But this game appealed to that demographic. The picture here is one of the most viewer-friendly ones I could find immediately. And I say picture here because obviously, even though you guys can't see it, I did, in fact, include wallpapers for every single game listed below. And actually, after this, I have to do some more research for my best movies and games of 2015. Yes, I'm already researching for that. And I already have a vomit list, as I like to call it, which is kind of like a startup list. But this game appealed to that demographic, which come on, man. Secondly, the budget. This game is so low budget, it's not even funny. I don't know why. It's not an indie game as far as I know. And actually, I think I'm wrong about that. But even for an indie game, like if you're going to make something, you're actually going to go to a company and they're going to accept it. You've got to step it up. It's just so unbelievably low budget that it ruins a ton of graphics, even in the trailers. The game even looks bad in the trailers, and this is true. Look up Fate Extella the Umbral Star trailers, and try not to look too closely at the thumbnails. How do you mess that up? And it looks even worse once you get it up. I'm referring to the game. Finally, the glitches. It's not quite as bad as Model Racer 4, but there are still a lot of glitches, and it doesn't feel like a totally patched experience whatsoever. We only have time for one more, which is going to be number 5, Skylanders Imagineer. So I think I'm just going to rush through this one. I kind of explain everything I want to say in the actual text, so I don't really need to elaborate too much, and we'll use this as part of the free-for-all section. Number 5, Skylanders Imaginators. Now, this may seem like one of the weirdest choices on here, and trust me, the next one is weirder. The thing that really gets on my nerves is the fact that this is pretty much DLC in its own game for no reason. Skylanders was such a great franchise, and then it got polluted once it blew up after Giants came out. They're moving backwards by running forwards, and the result of a lack of creativity and a need for money is something like Sing. Sorry, I mean Skylanders Imagineers. Real quick, that's a reference to my my top 10 worst movies of 2016, which I have to say is even better than this list. Like, if you guys are enjoying this list, wait until the next one. Just wait until the next one. I think I'm actually even going to use part of my free-for-all, if not all of my free-for-all, unless we have a caller calling in, to talk about that. And then I'm also going to finish up this one and talk about what's ever left with whatever remaining time we have. I know that's a weird kind of schedule, but I'm trying to try new things with the series. Like, I really tried something new with the 10th episode special of the BMS. So, and that worked out really to our advantage. And because, I mean, 27 calls. That's more calls than that's almost twice as many calls as we have for the entire show combined. Amazing, because we had only 15 overall before that. And in fact, I think I'm just going to try and finish both lists with the time we have, because it should be working out. There's really not much to say here, but I felt like this would be a good one to stick in my top 5 worst. Even though something like Moto Racer 4 in and of itself is a worse game in general. Because trust me, it's not like this is the only reason this game is on here. It's also pretty bad, which is true. And once again, if anyone would like to call in, the number is 719-284-5873 with the pin 24777. Once again, the number is 719-284-5873 with the pin 24777. I love listening to my own voice, but I also love listening to yours. So if you'd like to call in, I'd love to have your call, listen to your opinions, or even switch topics, since right now we are in our third section, which is always our free-for-all. So right now we are going to be checking out our number 4 on the list. We have been moving on. We have moved to my top 4 worst video games of 2016. Number 4 is kind of a controversial choice. Before we jump to this, I just like to say that number 4 is a controversial choice, whereas numbers 1 through 3, it's pretty much mutually agreed that those games are all terrible. Especially number 1. Number 1 is the epitome, the absolute definition of a terrible game. But we're going to be getting into that once we actually get to number 1. And number 4 is pretty short, whereas number 1, I dig into number 1 like you will not believe. Number 4, Lego Star Wars The Force Awakens. This is by far going to be my most hated decision, since the top 3 everyone mutually agrees on. See, like I said. But here's the thing. The game didn't innovate anything. Or sorry, this game. I don't know why I keep mixing that up. Either I mix it up when I speak or I mix it up in the post itself. And again, you can go check this out on Google Plus if you'd like to leave your opinion, or if you wanted to leave your opinion but you were busy or you forgot about the show and it's over by the time you're listening to this. All on Google Plus. It's all there. If I missed anything, go check it out. It's all there. Once again, after we finish this list, we're going to be getting into my even better list, my top 10 movies of 2016. My top 10 worst movies. That's a key crucial difference right there. I already have a top 10 best of 2016 for both movies and video games, which you can go check out. I also have that in my movies, video games, and so on collection. Oh, I need some water there. The Lego games have always been cool because they brought something to the table. The first Lego Star Wars, which I still have, was an inferior game, yes. But it brought a lot of, and by the way, I'm counting even for its time. Pretty much every game made back in 2006 was inferior, but I'm talking about for its time. But it brought a lot of new concepts, an entirely new style of gaming and comedy to the table. And that's true. It invented a style of comedy. I don't know what it's called, but I know they literally made a style of comedy, and they called it something because of this game. It's, amazing, which Lego has since expanded on, and they really have. And even recently, there have been a lot of good Lego games, but this one falls flat on its face by trying to have the best of both worlds, but getting neither. Real quick, before we go into my top 3 games of 2016, if you'd like to call in, my top 3 worst games of 2016, the number is 719-284-5873 with the pin 24777. Once again, the number is 719-284-5873 with the pin 24777. And before we get into our top 3 worst games of 2016, I'd like to bring up the fact that on my Instagram, I did a live stream. I did a live stream from a series called Your Glory, and you can go vote on the poll for the next episode, which is coming out in November. And what I do is I play as characters that you guys choose, and I play them for a couple of minutes. Okay, more than a couple of minutes. Play them for typically the half an hour to an hour span of time, sometimes give or take. And I was playing as, at the time, my third main, Ganondorf. And I already told you the story of well, people won't believe me when I say I JV3'd Zero's Cloudest Toon, but it's true. Hardest JV3 of my life, and I did it. But people won't believe me, and if I ever meet you guys IRL, I'm going to show you the video. Of course I saved the video of how I actually JV3'd Zero. Zero! Or at least someone who had the name Zero, and was playing as Cloud. But I found someone named Void, who with the same me as Void. I'm not sure about Zero. I forgot the account, how the account of Zero looked. But I'm almost positive that this was the real Void I was playing against. And I'm freaking out in the middle of the stream because, Void! The Void! Actually, the world's 7th best Smash player actually joined. I actually got paired up with him. And my friend Squirrel Pro channel on YouTube, he's at PAX right now. And the lucky guy, he actually got to meet Zero at PAX. Sadly, he did not actually get to fight against Zero. He got eliminated right in the round before he was going to go up against Zero. I feel so bad for the guy. I'm not sure we got eliminated by I think it was some nothing guy, but I'll have to double check. But he got eliminated right in the round before he was going to go up against Zero. I mean, poor guy. And he's at PAX West right now. Cool, good for him. If you're listening, Squirrel Pro channel, feel free to call in. It's good for you, man. Good for you. But I remember, I went up against his Mario, who is not in his top 3. And I've always said I wanted to be top 10 in the world, top 3. And I can consider myself to be S tier in anything. And at first he went up as Mario, and I just bodied his Mario. I felt so proud of myself for bodying his Mario as a Ganondorf. But yeah, his Mario just got bodied. JV2, I kid you not. It was all on stream. Anybody who watched that stream can vouch for me. And I'm sure I've saved the replay. But that's not in his top 3. And I was actually starting to type in, or I was thinking about typing in top 3, but I decided he wasn't leaving. So if he didn't do it after this, then I would leave. Or I mean, not leave, but I would say, because of course I'm not going to leave Void. Then I'd say, go top 3. Because I typically don't like to type stuff, but you got to make exceptions for something like that. But so you want to know who he picks as his next character? Fox, his second main. And I'm like, oh, this is sing ding dong to the heavens, baby. Because obviously it would have been preferred if he would have gone Sheik, which is his main. But I didn't care. Not only was I actually fighting against the Void, but he was actually playing as his top 3. I think his third main is Falcon or something. But we only played 3 games, one legit set, and I actually beat him in a set. Because I beat him in I got another JV2 with the Ganondorf side beat. In the first game I played against this boss, and in the second game I actually 2-stocked him with a back air to finish it off. True, I was at 116%, which barely counts, but it still does. I can't even. I know I saved at least one of those, probably 2 or 3, but still, I honestly, because it was Zero. He was super off his game. B, I was super on my game. C, I think he was streaming that day. It was near the end of his stream. And D, I was playing as my main Toon Link, who that's my best character of all time. And E, Toon Link it's a pretty fair matchup, and at this point I was already S tier with Toon Link. And after I beat Zero's Cloud, I realized that I was just too good with Toon Link. That's actually why I stopped playing with him, because it just got boring, because I was beating everyone on for glory. And I didn't think about going pro at the time. It just got pretty boring to play as Toon Link when I just kept beating everybody. And that was kind of the nail in the coffin. And that's actually why I stopped playing Ganondorf as well. When I can body someone that much, and I'll still play him for fun and everything, but I'm not going to play him competitively, because then it'll be too easy. That's why I'm challenging myself, with my main being Donkey Kong, my second being my second being Mac, and my third being Lucina. So I just wanted to talk about that. I just wanted to talk about that for a bit. But anyways, if anyone would like to call in as we go into our top 3 worst video games of 2016, the number is 719-284-5873 with the pin, and I'm actually telling this to someone right now. That's why my voice kept stuttering. 719-284-5873 with the pin 24777. No obligation whatsoever. And number 3, Call of Duty Infinite Warfare. COD was originally a small game, I believe an indie game, and that was the charm of it. There are FPSs everywhere now that all have the same cookie-cutter formula. The thing that was so nice about COD was it felt almost homey. It almost felt homey. It was still cool and intense, but it felt like a polished game. Be it limited, you could still fully explore the... sorry, I said that way wrong. Weird timing. It was still cool and intense, but it felt like a polished game. Be it limited, you could still fully explore those limits. Now, COD is just another FPS, and it's thanks to this game. Difficulty spikes, little glitches, annoying tricks. It's all these 1.5 million little things that the developers of this game overlooked that make it so frustrating. One of the reasons some indie games are short, but you enjoy every bit of it, is because you can explore everything that is given to you, or as little as you want. That's one thing that the old COD games had. You knew what was what, and it was all pretty cool and simple. But now it's this massive, useless behemoth. This game actually ruined the COD franchise, and that's why it's here, in the top 3 worst games of the year. Number 2, Hitman. Metal Gear Solid 5 felt like a truly next-gen experience due to its spectacular gameplay, even though the story was deeply lacking. This game has the opposite. The story is actually pretty interesting, but the gameplay sucks. It's so boring, limited, and straightforward. The glitches in this game can make the game frustratingly easy, which is actually worse than frustratingly hard. At least with the latter, you can still have a good time while recording a Let's Play or hanging out with somebody or somebody's you like. With the former, it feels like you can just breeze through it. And if you beat the super hard thing, say Dark Souls 3, which is ridiculously hard, it feels all the better. Whereas if you beat the super easy thing, it feels like nothing much. Some parts of the game are genuinely interesting, and they pick up a good idea, then drop it. And real quick, pausing the reading here, that's honestly just what makes it even more frustrating. We will not have time for my number 1 choice, sadly. You'll have to go check that out yourself as we go into our final segment, which is going to be on movies, more specifically my top 10 worst movies of 2016. But I do have time to finish up Hitman and take any final remarks about this particular segment. But before we do any of that, I need to sip wrong. Beautiful. It was pretty hard, actually, real quick, going off again, ranking whether this one was worse than COD Infinite Warfare or not. It's just the fact that in pure gameplay, I'd say COD is worse. But the thing is, just like, Hitman actually had like a lot of good ideas, like I was saying, and it just dropped it off, which really infuriated me. And the COD did the same thing, but not to as much of an extent, which was, in my view, the deal breaker. Excuse me. Does this game sound bad? Like, really bad? I mean terrible. Say worst of the year. Well, just you wait. Excuse me. What is wrong with me? I think I might have to eat. Well, just you wait, because number 1 redefines the word. And number 1 is my favorite part of this. But sadly, we do not have time for number 1. We have to move on to our final segment, which is, once again, movies. And if anyone would like to call in to the show to talk about movies, more specifically, my top 10 worst movies of 2016, the number is 719-284-5873 with the pin 24777. Once again, the number is 719-284-5873 with a pin 24777. Yo, I'm memorizing this number. If anyone has recently watched show 5 of the Ben Moskalensky show, my only show as of yet with the co-host, my great friend Sammy, don't listen to her. I have memorized the number. Don't listen to her words of evil. Okay, I have memorized the number. But yeah, perfect timing. We're now moving on to our final segment, which is movies, and let's just get right into it. Number 10, Inferno. I such. I am. I meant to say I am. I am such a huge fan of the Dan Brown books. I mean, they're all filled with such mystery and intrigue that even the historical knowledge alone keeps me listening. Via Audible, of course, and you got to have Scott Brick. Nothing but. And the other two films, they were pretty bad, but no way could they make this worse. That was a very young, very stupid Ben way back in September of 2016, a month before this movie came out. I'm just happy it wasn't right on my dad's birthday, or else I'd have conflicted feelings. For those of you who don't know, my dad's birthday is right around the time that this movie came out. I mean, most of the acting, with the exception of the superstars like Tom Hanks, was pretty bland. They ripped it right from the book. I mean, everything. Throughout the movie, it feels like they're trying to rush it up, but overall, it actually makes the pacing feel right, be it forced. And like many, if not all of the movies on this list, I did not feel emotionally attached to any of the characters in the end. I mean, heck, Battlefield 1 and Ocarina of Time made me attached to their characters. And those are video games! Overall, it feels like a shoved-out attempt at making a book that should have stayed a book seem like exactly that. You should be terrified that we've only just finished number 10. Number 9, Sing. By the way, I really hammer Sing. I don't know why I got so triggered for Sing. But anyways, number 9, Sing. And this was the reference from earlier. Now, we have 6 animated movies on this list. And yes, this is the best one, at least among the animated movies. And after I go through why I despise this movie, you'll be shocked as to how anything, much less 8 movies in the same year, can be worse. And by the way, kind of funny, there are 6 animated movies on the worst list and only 2 on the best list. I kind of feel bad for animated movies this year. They got the short end of the stick big time. The first thing about Sing, and yes, I'm starting is easy, is its bland messaging. Movies like Indiana Jones taught some great morals in its first movie, while still keeping it interesting. This movie has some of the most boring and bland generic messaging, such as don't lie and never give up. Some of the most basic messaging that is told in other movies with some purpose, with an addition to something else, as it should be. Not to mention that it is taught by parents in their own homes on a regular basis. Next, the characters. Now, this is going to be a bit long, a bit of a long one, since there's so much I want to dissect with this movie, and why Illumination screwed it up. None of them are interesting, and after analyzing the movie for a bit, it clicked. This was another shilled-out Hollywood attempt to appeal to a large demographic, and it worked, because a lot of people liked this quote-unquote movie. Sorry, it's just, I hate the fact that I have to give Sing and Die Hard the same tag. Anyways, with the exception of Gunther, who is just a funny character for the kids to go LOL at every time, every character appeals to a large demographic. Or, I'm sorry, appeals to a demographic of people or panders. Every last major character. Don't believe me? Buster appeals to hard workers who did or are doing hard, honest work to get food on the table for their family. Ash appeals to edgy teenage girls who are having boyfriend problems. And Rosita applies to hardworking mothers. This is only a couple of them. I could go on, and if anyone would like to challenge this point, give me a major character and I will prove you wrong. Then there's the animation, which is actually one of the cheapest things I've ever seen. It's like Illumination is developing a formula and they're testing it. They're trying to appeal to the biggest demographic possible with the least effort possible. That means animals is the main character, which has no purpose at all, pretty much. Celebrities, a PC message somewhere in there, and nonstop, constant, overwhelming pandering. And if anyone would like to call in and talk about these awful movies, or tell me if you actually like some of the movies on this list, the number is 719-284-5873 with the pin 24777. Once again, the number. And I want to give you guys a sec to listen or get out a pen or paper or something of the sort. I don't know why you use pen or paper in this digital age, but get out whatever you want to keep this number down. And while you do that, I'm going to take a sip of water. The number is 719-284-5873 with the pin 24777. Whoa, that was a nasty one. Number 8, Ghostbusters. Of course, the 2016 version, because this is Ben's top 10 worst of 2016. I mean, I'm not sure how long I'm going to go on with this series until I get bored. But I'm gonna check out. Yeah, so the original Ghostbusters came out in 1984. I'm probably not gonna carry this along until 1984, but in theory, I could go all the way back to 1914 with the number of movies. Whereas with video games, I think I'm gonna have to stop after 2000. I'm probably gonna have to stop after 2008, unless there's popular demand or I discover something else or yada yada yada. But most likely, the video games is gonna get cut off a lot. Are going to get cut off way before the movies. But sorry, back on track. You're probably going to notice me getting triggered as a theme of this post. And again, excuse me, I'm reading a lot of this. This applies to both my video games and movies segment. And I know a lot of this is me reading. I just wanted to try something new for this one. And I put a ton of hard work and effort into these lists. And I want everybody, as many people as possible, to hear about it. And I want to talk about this because I really tried hard. But that's because Ghostbusters triggers me. Another thing that makes me mad are these film critics. If you read the reviews on Rotten Tomatoes, look at their good reviews. Any of them. I mean, I don't mean good reviews in terms of well-worded or correct. I mean good reviews in terms of, like, positively reviewing the movie. Or, I mean, reviewing the movie positively. They will try to use big words to mislead you into thinking this movie is something other than it is. I mean, the only reason I got past this trap is because since I wrote Hopper's memoirs, I can see right through it. But most people can't. It's a disgusting trap, just as this movie is. It's nothing but an attempt to exploit nostalgia, except if you're a man. We don't want your nostalgia. But seriously, though, I understand why people want diversity in their movies. I get that they want to be PC, because that's the only way they won't be shunned, which is more insane to me, but more on that later. Actually, we probably won't have time to do more on that later, because I talk about that on my number 1. But seriously, a cast of all women. The reason I have a problem with this, and not a problem with the original, is because, as far as I know, the original wasn't meant as a pro-men, anti-women thing. Or at least it wasn't marketed that way. Whereas this movie is, only it's the other way around. Not only are some of the actresses here, some of which were good, have their talent wasted, but the jokes aren't funny, and they overplay the sass card way too much. And if anyone would like to call in as we go into my top 10 worst movies of 2016, the number is 719-284-5873 with the pin 24777. Once again, the number is 719-284-5873 with the pin 24777. Now, before I go into my number 7 choice, I want to say real quick that a lot of people were confused as to why I didn't start with 2017. And that kind of surprised me because I thought that was fairly obvious. The reason I didn't start with 2017 is because 2017 isn't over yet. There will be more games and movies coming out this year, some of which can be fantastic or terrible. That's why I don't want to do it yet. I don't want to do it ahead of time because, well, that's why. Sorry, it looks like we just had a weird call and then it kind of immediately disconnected. That was really weird. Hopefully, caller, if you're listening, I'm not sure what you did there. If you're a spam caller, don't bother calling back. If you're a person genuinely who wants to talk about the show, please don't feel like you can't call in again or anything. You can call as many times as you want to, as long as you don't completely overwhelm the show. So, but hey, at least we didn't have 0 calls this show. But anyways, we are now going to be moving on to our 7th worst movie of the year. Number 7, Batman vs. Superman: Dawn of Justice. This is only one of the DC movies on this list. DC came out with 2 movies this year. They're both on the list, and this is the better one. This just proves my point. Marvel took 2016's best by storm, with all 4 of their movies making it onto the top 3. I'm sorry, top 10. 3 of them making it to top 5, and 1 of them making it to top 3. I mean, hopefully, things have gone better in past years, or will get better as time passes, because in 2016, the attack on DC's legacy was massive, not only by stellar Marvel movies, but also by its own crappy movies, starting with this one. Now, this movie did have its moments, a lot of which were really cool. The opening scene, the fight scenes were fantastic, and the acting in some places wasn't too bad. But the thing is, the movies were building up to this, and unlike Captain America: Civil War, which masterfully brought it together for part 1, this movie flopped on its face. It relied way too much on fighting, to the point where it felt like only the level parts of a video game. The story's rushed. Everything feels rushed, except for the fight scenes, which they tried way too hard to get right, and did. It wasn't a deep or thought-provoking movie at all. It's about as deep as your bathtub. This movie is a disgrace to DC's legacy, and all I can say is I never grew up on Batman vs. Superman. But if they screw up on Justice League, and I want everyone to hear this, and I want my voice to be as quiet and menacing as possible, there will be hell to pay if they screw up Justice League. Number 6, Norm of the North. This movie essentially falls at the one thing. False. This movie essentially fails at the one thing it's trying to be: a comedy and an animation. Not only does the animation seem cheap and fall on its face, not even showing an interesting color palette, unlike the Emoji Movie, which actually was artistically creative, or Kubo. Heck, Kubo is a sad, depressing movie. It's meant to be that way. And there are still moments that are more funny than Norm of the North. Norm of the North is one of the most generic movies of all time. The plot is generic and boring. The characters are generic and boring. The whole stupid thing is generic and boring. You may only be sitting in the theater for an hour and a half, but it feels more like 2 weeks. It's the most bland and inoffensive thing of all time. Remember Frozen? That garbage was more entertaining visually from a comedic standpoint, and story-wise, not as bad. And I hated Frozen. I still do. Norm of the North is so inoffensive, it's actually offensive, at least in its stupidity. If anyone would like to call in for these final 3 minutes of the show, the number is 719-284-5873 with the pin 24777. Once again, the number is 719-284-5873 with the pin 24777. We are now moving on to our top 5 worst movies of the year. If we're lucky, we'll have time to finish at least the 5 and 4, but we will not have time for the top 3. Number 5, Ice Age Collision Course. This one isn't going to be too long. I mean, I might as well just copy and paste Norm of the North in here, since it has all the same problems. But there are 2 things that make it worse. First of which is the fact that the audience gave it 40%. And this is one of the few times where I'd say the critics got it right with 15%. Or at least not as wrong. I kind of misworded it. They got it not as wrong. I personally would prefer a review closer to 5 or 3%. The only funny moments of this movie were in its few trailers. Afterwards, it's no longer entertaining. But the second thing is, I loved the Ice Age movies, with the first one being a pretty good movie, the second one being okay, the third one being a masterpiece, a violently underrated one at that, and the fourth one being fairly mediocre. This one is just terrible. I personally hope they finish the movies after this, because I'm probably not going to see another one if it ever comes out, with the exception of course, amazing ratings. And we are now moving on to our number 4 choice, the Angry Birds movie. This is my personal fit. Okay, I prefer the movies list over the video games list, at least for worst. Actually, I'd say both times I probably prefer movies over video games. I'm not sure as to why, but I think they're both worth reading. And I put a ton of equal effort into both. But this is my favorite part of my favorite list, because this is out of my 4 lists, this is my favorite one. And this is my favorite part of my favorite list. So this is not only in the top 25%, this is in the top 3% of everything. I remember one time I threw up. First time in my life. I was maybe 6. I had a bad breakfast, okay? It wasn't a little go up and down stuff. And by the way, real quick, we're going to extend this segment just a bit because I love this too much. I was in a bad shape. And I remember that horrible stomach ache right before vomiting. And want to know what? It still wasn't as bad as my pounding headache after sitting through the Angry Birds movie. And there's no twist as to why I had the headache. It was because of this trash. I actually welcomed it. The white-hot pain was a nice distraction from the other kind of pain. The much worse kind that this movie made me feel. There's a lesson in this, actually. Don't make video game movies. Because that's better than anything. Come on, man. Don't make video games movies. Because that's better than anything. Wait, what? Oh, I just worded it wrong in the post itself. I didn't say it. Don't make video game movies. Because anything's better because anything and everything is better than the Angry Birds movie and what it teaches. First of all, PC. But again, I'll be covering that later. Actually, I won't, but in the post I will. So make sure you go check that out on Google+. Remember, this is only our 4th out of 6 animated movies on this list. And this isn't even top 3. But even if you like PC stuff, it's still not enough to salvage this awful, awful movie. The jokes are unfunny and bland, not to mention they're repetitive. It switches between unbelievably inoffensive or way too offensive for a kid's movie like a 5-year-old with a pen light, turning it on and off, waving a lot, waving it a little, doing nothing at all after a parent says to turn it off, then bringing it back and repeating the whole stupid cycle all over again. This movie is an atrocious failure, and the criticism it got is 100% deserved. At least all of the fair criticism. There will always be people who take it way too far or too far. But I like the people on Rotten Tomatoes. But I feel like the people on Rotten Tomatoes said it perfectly. At least a majority of critics did. Anyways, that'll be wrapping up our Ben Moskalensky show. I know I extended it a bit, and frankly, I think everybody was happy. I'll bet you to people who haven't read it yet will be happy. And the views are, I remember I was looking at the views earlier today, and I remember while I was looking and talking, I got like a dozen more views. It is crazy what's happening. I want to see, so I'm going to be posting about that a little bit later, so you can go check out like the stats if you're a fan of that. Anyways, everybody, hope you have a nice day. I'm going to go try to do the same.